join me on stage. We're going to go straight into our first conversation with the great Scott Heiferman.
Oh,
Scott. Scott founded Meetup, but I want to just give you a couple more data points about him.
Oh no.
He, when he was at University of Iowa, he actually had a radio show that was like an anti-consumerist radio show. So he comes from a sort of not typical entrepreneurial tech place. Then he came to he told me this morning he saw a mosaic for the first time when he was at the University of Iowa. Then he came to New York and in 1995 started iTraffic, which was one of the very first digital ad agencies. He sold that to agency.com in 1999. But this is the kind of guy he is. After he sold that first company, instead of just going, sailing around the world or, spending his money, he decided to go to work at McDonald's for a few weeks because he wanted to get back in touch with the real world. Now, this is, to me, the kind of thing that you wouldn't hear somebody say in Silicon Valley. In fact, I would be curious to know if anybody knows of any Silicon Valley entrepreneur who took that kind of approach. This is why New York is different. We have people like Scott. So then, after 9/11, he decided something like Meetup was necessary because, maybe you can explain that in a minute, but not only did he start Meetup in 2011, he also started a photo sharing service called Photolog, which he ran simultaneously and later sold for $90 million. Meanwhile, Meetup has become a huge phenomenon. It's now owned by WeWork. One of its investors is Pierre Omidyar, who's somebody we have tremendous admiration for, and I'm hoping we'll get to talk about him a little bit. But so maybe you should first start by saying, why did you start Meetup?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is an old story now, but basically, my experience on 9/11 on that day, I was living in Soho and went to the roof of my building just after that second plane hit and basically experienced that day talking to my neighbors as I hadn't before in my apartment building, and in the days and weeks after found myself being friendly with my neighbors, and that felt good. And so this question of in a world that can be scary and difficult, and life is a struggle, this idea of how you bring people together and how do people come together, how do they support each other and help each other, and are we headed towards a world where people are just where people are ripped apart, or are we headed towards a world where people are brought together? So Meetup is just an idea to say how can you use the internet to get people off the internet.
So concretely, all the way back then, you were thinking, is that what can the internet do, yin or yang kind of thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we all, like, the internet's a network of computers, or is it a network of people?
And what do you think about this question right now? I mean, where do you come down on this?
Will tech save the planet? Will tech destroy the planet? Yeah. So, I don't know, but it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. That we are definitely, it's beyond tech. As software's eating the world. What is tech anymore? Everything is tech.
You work for a real estate company.
Yeah, I'm part of what people think. Some people think is a real estate company, but it's very infused with tech and has this whole network effect. And so, but no, this word of I feel, and not unlike most of you, that we're in a really critical moment in culture and society. And I know every generation thinks that, this is the important moment, but really the 2020s, the 2030s, with the combination of climate change and wealth and income disparity and a lot of dysfunction and all kinds of problems. Again, there's always been problems. There always will be problems. But I don't have to explain to this audience that it's a critical juncture. And so either and one big piece of it that I think doesn't get talked about is this question of the fundamentals of are we ripping people apart or bringing them together? And so I am so here we are, 2019. This world, you have a company called Facebook that has a really wonderful, important, good mission, and I believe, one of these days, I don't write anything, but if I were to write anything, if I were to knew how to write like you did,
Write it for Tech On.
I would write, I would say, like, in defense of Mark Zuckerberg,
Okay. Why?
Well, because for all the flack and all the deserved flack and real issues there, the fundamentals of how communities and groups and communication and the systems by which people can, everyone in this room might say, I hate Facebook, but at the same time, you use their products, and while it might annoy you, and the ads might annoy you, and the addiction might annoy you, and all this ripping apart stuff, we're not going to in the future do without the connective technologies, the software that brings people together. Now at Meetup, and the We company to some degree, it's really taking it seriously, as in understanding that, whereas 10, 20 years ago all the people consumed with digital and all this stuff, there was a very simplistic notion of digital versus concrete, or bits versus atoms, or whatever you might call it. We're now in and heading more into a world where it's a lot more. It's a lot more. Everything's more integrated, and Amazon has physical stores and all this stuff. But the fundamentals. I actually want to. I know I'm rambling here, but if I could just wrap in with one last thing. I realize a lot of what I'm saying is like the common talk that people might have on stages like this. But I think the fundamentals of people feeling lonely, people struggling with opportunity, people, the levels of depression that are up, suicide, the difficulties in everyday in people's lives around the world, is totally separate from discussions of like, what's the future of blockchain and what's the future of AI. I think zeroing in, Meetup was zeroing in on questions of people's lives, and I think today you still have to do that. And while the autonomous cars will replace the Lyft and Uber drivers, maybe that's fine, that's natural. But the questions of what brings me great kind of hope is that I see that when people meet up. Whether it's a book club meetup, or a running meetup, or a hiking meetup, or a coding meetup, or that the need for people to have opportunity and to feel a sense of togetherness, belonging, the dignity associated with all that stuff, that's like very much the real deal of real lives, and I hope becomes more of the conversation and in these kinds of gatherings.
Well, we try to make it a large part of it here, and it is kind of, I think, good parallelism that we're starting today with you, and we start tomorrow with Doug Rushkoff, who just wrote a book called Team Human, which really, in an almost philosophic way, explores these questions very straightforwardly with a lot of concern. But so you would defend Zuckerberg, even though you're saying that we need to, think more about people's emotional, economic experience as a community. So you think that they've done that? I don't want to dwell on Facebook, even though I often do. But do you really think that they have given that sufficient thought?
Yeah, I think if you actually read, the Zuckerberg sort of manifesto from 18 months ago, 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, that before they got quite distracted with all the chaos that's gone on. I think that the fundamentals of listen, I don't believe in psychoanalyzing Donald Trump or psychoanalyzing Mark Zuckerberg. I really don't care about these people as individuals. But the question of does a mass network, does a mass network of that helps people connect and communicate, is that important and good for society and advancing that? And by the way, we're at the what's amazing is that we're still at the early stages of what it means. Like, we can press a button and make a car show up right now, but you can't press a button and make people show up. We've been hacking on this idea of meetup, and okay, it's wonderful that millions of people are going to a meetup this month, and there's 10,000, 20,000 gatherings every day, but that's nothing. That's nothing. If you're let's say you're a woman who wants to run, prepare for a marathon or something, and you have little kids, and you wanted to run at night with a pack of other women because it's safe on weeknights in your neighborhood, and you run at this pace, and I guarantee you there are probably a half a dozen other women within 3 blocks of you who would want to do that same 9 p.m. run with you, but how would you find them? How would you hook up? How would you connect? Why aren't pharma companies connecting the people who are taking the same drug in the same neighborhood if it's actually been proven, which it has, which is health condition by health condition by health condition? If you're a part of a healthcare support group, if you're a pregnant woman and you meet with a bunch of other pregnant women, you have a 30 monthly, regularly, in a properly facilitated situation, you have a 30% chance of not having, 30% less chance of having a premature baby. Diabetes, similar kinds of story. What's my point? My point is that there's, okay, we can psychoanalyze Mark Zuckerberg, like, does he understand humanity? Does he doesn't? Is he lost? Is he, I don't give a shit. All I know is that the world is filled, just like people didn't realize that, you could press a button to make a car show up, or you could press a button and rent someone's apartment, and you could rent your apartment to someone else, that there was this marketplace opportunity to connect people. That's all these things are, is they connect people. People who want to ride, give a ride, have an apartment, want to get an apartment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there's still vast opportunity to connect people, and connecting people is the cure.
So it sounds like you're coming down on the positive side of how tech will, function in society going forward quite strongly.
I think that it's complicated, but yeah, I think that so we stand here. Here we are. It's May 2019. Fast forward 10 years, May 2029. Again, with this disparity and dysfunction and climate change and the impact of AI and all this stuff, and all the kind of brokenness, including the effects of Facebook-like things that rip people apart and addict them to screens, and the fact that the greatest minds of generations are focused on getting people to click on ads and making all this financial infrastructure and, dare I say, even tech infrastructure. I mean, I'm fascinated by blockchain and crypto stuff, but frankly, I don't give a shit. We need to be thinking about how do you bring people together, the practical applications of that, and unleashing all the positive impacts of that, because we are still, it's like we're in a caveman era on people not being brought together.
Well, you've gone right to the central issues here. I guess the question that would lead me to ask then is, what besides tech entrepreneurship would we need to see that start to happen? Because I think that makes so much sense. It's so, in a way, self-evident. The question is, how do you turn toward the camera, by the way, because this is being live streamed and we want to record this. But how do we get from here to there? That's what I don't really understand in what you're saying.
I don't know. I've got some ideas, but
Well,
I don't
let's
have
hear it.
the grand answers.
Give
I
me
mean,
an idea.
listen, I'm a fan of the. Well, first off, I'll mention 2 quick things. First off, and not to just I mean, I can talk about. Sorry, let me just simplify here. The movement, very early movement around platform cooperativism is really fascinating to me. What platform cooperativism is that, especially some of those from outside the U.S., co-ops, the co-op as a structure for organization is a huge part of business, in a lot of countries. And the idea of you have these marketplace platforms, these Ubers of the world that have enormous valuations based on the idea that they're going to extract value from these transactions between riders and drivers. And platform cooperativism says, hey, what if there was a much thinner layer at the platform or infrastructure level with the ownership being distributed to the actors in that marketplace? So in other words, at the end of the day, it's like if you pay $50 for an Uber ride, why isn't more of the money going to the driver? And frankly, and why isn't that actual platform not just owned by mostly Wall Street as opposed to owned by the drivers or other actors in that network? So that's it may sound like an esoteric kind of notion, but I think we have to think about what's the world we want to live in, and if again we've come so far. It was only a dozen years ago there was no such thing as a smartphone, and 20-some years ago there was practically no web. So this question of what's ahead in the next 10, 15 years, I think that when I say bring people together, I do mean that quite literally as like physical bring people together. That's which is it's fascinating with the We company, WeWork, how the idea of the physical social network that is really interesting. But just more broadly, the idea of being together in the form of, hey, we're not just consumers or audience members in part of in this economy, but how do more people become an active owner and participant, and in a less extractive, more, to borrow from Douglas Rushkoff, a team human-centric world. I apologize for those of you who are thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? Just the question, the questions should be, what are the next VC-funded thing?
No, that's not.
And what's going to happen to Uber
I would be
stock?
embarrassed if that was the question this audience was asking.
Yeah.
But you mentioned addiction, and you also made a very concrete decision at Meetup at a certain point not to pursue an ad-based model, but to pursue a pay model, and it actually ended up working for you, although you didn't, get to be as rich as Mark Zuckerberg. Just quickly talk about that, and then I want to hear questions and comments from the audience.
About going.
Well, I mean, I think Wall Street's control of these
I
companies.
couldn't get past that point if I'm not as rich as Mark Zuckerberg.
I don't blame you.
I was just thinking about that. Why would I want to be?
I don't blame you, but Wall Street's control and influence over these companies has a lot to do with their profit potential and the advertising model that has come to be the primary way that these companies are, quote unquote, monetized. And you chose not to do that, which also, and there's a deep connection between the ad model and the addictive properties of these platforms. So I just want you to talk a little bit more about that and then hear the audience. Yeah.
I mean, listen, we can all understand and respect, this idea of, hey, if you want to provide a service to the world because the network effects are valuable, not just to the company but to the people, then you got to provide this free service, and that's supported by ads. Fine. I think that as Netflix and Spotify, are proving, you can have a very low-priced subscription model and provide great quality to the world, but more broadly speaking, I think that these things are all interconnected, and we made a conscious choice at Meetup to we built a sustainable, successful business out of without ads, and the model is that a small portion of the 100 million people that have signed up pay for the organizer features and things of that sort, and it works. But I didn't think so deeply about it at the time, but listen, if we're going to get on in society, if you're going to reach sustainable development goals, you have to think as sustainably and holistically. And I feel like there aren't like sort of shortcuts or free lunches, and so does that mean the whole world should be paying cash money to Facebook to be using Facebook every month? I think that the reality of people of the core business, if your core business is to get people to stare at a screen, then you're going to get people to stare at a screen. And we need to, as individuals, people building stuff, people making stuff, and just as people in the world, be, you brought up Pierre Omidyar. I had this, Pierre Omidyar is the founder of eBay, and he was on Meetup's board for a long time. And when we were going to go from free to fee, here we were this business. We had to figure out what the hell our revenue was. We decided we were going to go this not ad-based, but fee-based, like Netflix and Spotify. And I was worried. I said, Pierre, what if people don't pay and their expectations are going to be really high? And he said, exactly.
Good. Okay, well, that was a great answer. Okay, can we get the house lights up? And I want to see anybody in the audience with questions or comments. Okay, right here. That's a good person to start with. Tony, go ahead. The mic is right behind you. Come, hold it. Okay. We've only got 4 minutes, so this has got to be really telegraphic.
So you mentioned the We Company, and you talked about cooperatives. Is there a bigger picture for physical social networks through the We infrastructure to create more of those type of cooperatives? Because when I go to a WeWork, there's serendipitous interactions that happen between the different organizations that are in there. Is there a bigger picture of it being an infrastructure to enable that kind of cooperative?
Anything's possible. I am not at liberty to speak about that, but you can be assured that there's really progressive thinking throughout the We Company.
Okay, how about back there?
Hi there, Justin Selman. Simple follow-up.
Yeah, identify yourself, please.
Justin Selman.
And what do you do?
I am actually in transition. I'm moving to Dallas, so my full-time job is finding the job. Anyway, just a simple question. Can you talk a little bit about how we and Meetup have interacted and kind of like what you've seen from a positive standpoint?
Thank you.
Yeah. So listen, I sold the company to WeWork, the We Company, because Meetup was doing well and growing just fine, but there was, but we weren't on pace to really make a huge dent in society, at the level to really make a difference. And things seemed to be, going south in the world at the end of 2016 when we started, working on that deal. And so how's it been? Being a person in this industry, you see every decade there's a couple few rocket ships, and you're always I don't know how many of you think the same, but you always wondered wow, what would have been like to be a part of Google or these other these few rocket ships, and to kind of be on the inside seeing what that's like. So the combination of the alignment in the mission and their belief and what's happened is that they continue to double down on the Meetup mission, and the view and getting to sort of see a rocket ship from the inside. When we did the deal, WeWork was maybe a couple thousand employees, and now it crossed over 10,000 employees, and just I think that's public in just the past and over just an 18-month period or so, and so. I'm lucky. Their mission continues to kind of refine and be really aligned with this idea of being the only company in the world that is thinking about physical in real life, community and space with community and bringing people together and doing that through the lens of offices and the lens of services like Meetup and all kinds of things.
Okay. Over here. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sherry Curticle. I'm CEO of Victim's Voice. So gentrification of a lot of areas is a thing, definitely. Has the We Company and Meetup ever thought about doing subsidized office space with Meetup-supported intentional collaboration for job training and entrepreneurship support to help that non-1%?
That's a very specific question, but an interesting one.
Haven't thought of that. My email address is scott@meetup.com if you want to send me something. I would just say again, WeWork is proud to that compared to a lot of office alternatives, it's less expensive. And it's certainly not a WeWork and the We Company is not a service for the 1%. And Meetup, we're proud to that. The vast majority of people use it for free. But happy to chat.
Good. Sorry, we have to wrap now because we have a lot happening in this conference, and this is a conference for people who want to think because we put a lot in front of you. And also, Scott has to catch a train. So thanks, Scott. That was